Hi guys, welcome to Spot the Difference, Future You's new podcast. For those of you that don't know about the company and ourselves, if you want to head over to our video that's pinned to the top of our channel, that will give you an introduction as to who we are as a business, who we are as individuals, what our goals, what our motives are, how it all came about, and what we want to achieve in trying to make people become fitter, healthier, happier. And really the idea of our podcast is to touch base with everyone from celebrities right the way down to individuals who pass on the street and not have a clue who they are, and talk about life and how they've had struggles, challenges, how they've overcome it, where they are now, and really provide content in which people hopefully will listen to and watch and be able to relate to and implement that in their life. So you've got myself, Adam Shaw, I want to host it, and I'm the director of Future You. We've got Gary, our guest, and we've got James, so I'll let them two guys introduce each other and we'll go from there.
Yeah, hi everyone. Today's guest, Gary Mutimer, fantastic bloke, and someone who's got a phenomenal story from really where he's been, his career and personal life. And yeah, we hope this episode really especially focused around mental health, physical health, but really how to overcome it and, you know, adversities in life. And yeah, I'll pass over to Gary. I think if we start maybe, Gary, with looking back sort of about, you know, your career and then sort of how that progressed and into the nitty-gritty details, shall we say?
Yeah. So hi guys, how you all doing? And thank you very much for the invite to be able to share. Well, I just think it's a normal everyday story, but when I say it to people, they start either raising eyebrows or just like saying, no, it's not an ordinary story. So yeah, so go back as far as 2016. I was just your normal everyday. I still am your normal everyday guy, and I was a documentary maker. And we used to make documentaries for the likes of Netflix, STV, Channel 4, places like that. And we were doing okay. You know, there was nothing really to write home about or anything like that. So round about October time in 2016, got me, I was nearly September there. In October time 2016, I was 39 years old. I was carrying 15 stone. I was 15 stone, and I was only carrying 16% body fat. I was really fit. I was running probably 5K 2 or 3 times a week. I was kickboxing. I was just working out, doing calisthenics, which is I've always done, you know, using body weight. And I was really very, very fit. And I remember being at the Virgin Active gym in Sunderland. I think that was the David Lloyd here or something like that. But I was at that gym and I was with my best mate, a guy called Richie Duggan. And we're doing some sparring, just normal everyday stuff. And the pad work was going through. We were doing side shots with the pads, and he caught me on the side. And the pain was just instant. And I remember falling to my knees. And we were saying, he was going, all right, get up, you soft git, and stuff like this. We were laughing. And we just thought maybe it's just the way he's caught me, you know. And at the time, I could take hits, you know, really take hits. So I was a bit bemused with it. But that just knocked my training off altogether. My at the time was really, really maxed. Well, sorry, I spoke about it to my partner. She said, you really need to make an appointment, you know, stuff like this. Because around about that evening, I'd gone to the toilet and I passed loads of blood. And we just thought possibly it was just kidney stones. I've had them in the past. It happens. More diet controlled and stuff like that. So it's kidney stones. But appointment with the doctors and the GP, nevertheless. Stupidly, and I don't advocate this, but I missed my appointment. So I didn't go to the GPs. You know, the filming schedule was just ridiculous. So I made another appointment with the GP, and they put me through for a CT scan up at the old Grindon Medical Centre. I think it was like a drop-in centre, and that's where you had your CTs. So I got dropped off up there by the lads at work, having the scan done. And they were bantering, you know, the woman was really nice, and she was telling me something chronic. And this was on a Wednesday. I think it was a Wednesday. And suddenly the room just changed. You know, the personas changed. The way they were talking to me changed. They were in and out of the room. She goes, I'll be back in a minute. She was in and out of the room. And she said, look, she goes, we found a black mass. We don't know what that is. So me being me, just very flippant, was like, oh, well, I was probably just like a lot of kidney stones, whatever. And they made me go and sit outside and told me they were going to ring down to some hospital. Meantime, what happened was, I was picked up by two patient ambulance drivers who took me down, and I had a CT scan done there and then, and that was quite interesting. And then this guy, he was called Professor Green. He wasn't the rapper. He was an old bloke. I was disappointed as soon as he came out, because he was just like, he said, "Are you?" He said, "Are you okay, son?" I was like, "Well, but sheer fact, I'm in hospital. Probably not." That's a bit of a backward thing to say. And he said, "Prepare yourself for bad news." I said, I've got that much bad luck, mate. I get bad news all the time, so I'll be super prepared 24/7. And we just laughed it off. Anyway, so that weekend, I was going to Edinburgh with my partner. We were going for like a couple's weekend up there, and Sarah was very conscious about it, upset, very anxious is the word I'm looking for. And she's got, she's qualified to be like that because she's a clinical psychologist and she used to work in cancer services. So she kind of had an inkling about the 2-week rule. I wasn't aware of the 2-week rule or anything like this. I didn't know what that meant. And I don't know if you know what the 2-week rule is if you go to the doctors or the GP and they've got an inkling of cancer, or they think it possibly could be, within 2 weeks, you're scanned, you're assessed, and you're diagnosed. And this is all within a 2-week rule. So on the Monday, I got back, and on the Monday, we got back on the Sunday. On the Monday, I took a phone call from a specialist nurse. I didn't know this at the time, but this was a Macmillan nurse. And she said, like, Professor Green would like you to come in and see her on the Thursday. Can you bring some family with you? I said, well, I'm not going to bring all my family because that would be a bit weird. I'll bring the important ones. I was like, yeah, like, yeah, I'll bring family. So what it was, I took, with Sarah being a doctor, I took Sarah, who knew about, like terminology and stuff like this. I took her into the meeting, and I took my dad, he's a retired now, he's a charge nurse, again, knows about the terminology. I'm not from a medical background, so I wouldn't have been asking the right questions. But when we came to the room, registrar, and she was, looking back at it, I've probably been very critical of this woman, because when she was sitting talking to me, she was speaking to me like I'm a child. And she was saying to me, she goes, we've got some, with the great sadness, I'll tell you that you've got cancer, but she couldn't give me what stage of that cancer was. And she goes, we discovered that you've got a heart condition called aortic stenosis. Well, this infuriated me, and I was quite angry because I've never had any signs. I've been asymptomatic. I've trained really heavily. I was 15 stone at the time. I was all over the place in terms of fitness, involved hiking and climbing, all crap. To be told I had a heart condition, and she said it's quite a serious heart condition. You need to be assessed and all of this jazz. And she said it's aortic stenosis, and she went to draw me a picture, and I said, I'm 39 years old, mate. I don't need pictures. Give me, write the name down. I'll go away and I'll research it myself if you can't give me an in-depth. She was very vague in her diagnosis. She couldn't give me any real information. So she was sitting as I am looking at you guys now, and the computer was behind her, and she kept doing this. Excuse me, I'll just demonstrate. She kept doing this and turning her back to go on the system to read my notes. Well, she should have read my notes before I'd gone in, knew what she was going to tell me, didn't have to refer to that. Because I'm very direct, and sometimes I've been told it can come across as aggressive because I've got a shaved head in the beard, and he's like, oh, it's not, I'm very direct. I think she was nervous at the same time, and she was getting a lot of questions from Sarah and questions from her father. What didn't really make it too comfortable is when we looked on the floor next to her, there was all the patient notes were facing upwards. So Sunderland's not a very big place, and my surname's not a very common name. So if somebody was sitting and saw the name Mutimer, there's only a handful of us. It could have easily been seen. So confidentiality was out the window. So anyway, we'd gone next door. The Macmillan nurse came in. She explained what aortic stenosis was, and it was this heart condition and blah, blah, blah. And it's often for people and blokes, men and women, sorry, who are in the 70s and 80s who's 39, and a lot of this is down to self-neglect with them, with bad lifestyles, smoking, drinking. Your stereotypical bloke who sits in a workingman's club 24/7, or you see him hanging out the back of Steele's club. It's like very, it's very lifestyle led. Well, I've got a very clean lifestyle. I've never smoked. Fit. Diet's a bit of an issue, but we're not split hairs. So really, it was all about that. Anyway, cutting long story short, I was in the process of moving over to Newcastle at the time. We wanted the care taken from Sunderland to the Freeman. Sunderland wouldn't release me over to the Freeman until I'd had a cardiology assessment. Now, bear in mind, we're in the last weeks in November at this point, and they said the earliest I can get in is in January. So this set me off, and I remember having an argument with the Macmillan nurse, who was fighting my corner, by the way, so I was arguing with the wrong person, and saying I want to be transferred because, I've got cancer and it's progressing. The consultant said, yeah, but it's slow progression. I said, the key word in this is progression. It doesn't matter if it's slow, fast, aggressive. I'm not really interested. The key word's progress. So the Macmillan nurse through, I had the assessment and I was transferred over to the Freeman. When I got to the Freeman, total change, absolutely super professional. They explained to me about what aortic stenosis was, what the cancer treatment would be. It transpired because I had stage 2 kidney cancer. They didn't, at the time at Sunderland, they never told me what the staging was. When I got to the Freeman, they then told me what the staging was. And all this time, I was only ever focused on my physical health. I ignored my mental health. What I would later discover would be an absolute, that would come back to bite me big time, essentially, because your physical health and your mental health are equally as important as each other. People really neglect it. They don't understand that. It's equally as important. So if you're going through a traumatic experience, physically, mentally check in with yourself all the time. So got through to the Freeman, had a few cardiology tests. They were absolutely amazing. And I had the surgery. So I went in on the Monday, and this would have been, by this point, we're in the first weeks in December. I went in on the Monday, had the surgery, had the kidney out. It transpired that I had an 8 centimetre tumour on my kidney. So if that's your kidney, the way to describe it, the 8 centimetre tumour was on that side. If it was on the opposite side, it would have spread to my spleen and all over the place. So I would have had a secondary cancer, and it would have been a complete nightmare. And unbeknownst to me, they don't do chemotherapy for kidney cancers or anything like that. I just thought you had, if you're in, I didn't even know about staging, to be fair. I just thought if you're in a certain part of your cancer, you could have chemo. Apparently not if it's kidney. Anyway, so I was discharged on the Thursday. One of the issues I was finding is when I was standing up, and what I'll do is I'll send some pictures over on a WhatsApp, and I'll give you a bit of time when you see the pictures. I couldn't stand up straight because I was doubled over in pain. And I remember talking to this guy who was on the opposite bed, and he'll be dead now, bless him. He was probably in his 50s. He had kidney cancer, the same as me. But during that operation, they'd nicked his bowel. So he was brought back in. He was having to be fed by purposely big. It's weird to look at. They're like carrier bags, and they hang up there and they feed people who've got issues with bowels or bowel operations. And this guy never moaned once, and they were having to feed him 2 or 3 times a day. But every time they did that, they would have to put a new line in him. So it wasn't going in his arm or his neck. It was going in his groin, his feet, up here. It's just going into really obscure places because they exhausted his veins in his arms and stuff like this. And he was very open and said, look, I'm going to die. They haven't got all my kidney my cancer out. This will probably kill me in the end. I'll be dead before long. And they were talking about it, dead flippantly. And I just felt hardly sorry for him because he never moaned once. I never saw him shed a tear, or he just never flitted. And I remember getting up and going to the toilet. I was to the toilet and I had the bag in and all the rest of it. So the one thing, without being, very crude about it, is when you've had a kidney out or a big operation, it affects your bowels. You can't go to the toilet. There's a big issue. They make a big song and dance about you going to the toilet and your bowels. I was like, I was having a conversation with a 23-year-old young nurse. I don't really want to talk about my toilet habits to a 23-year-old nurse unless I'm drunk and I'm having a laugh with it. But it was just one of them. They were banging on about this all the time. So I remember going past his bed and he was saying to me, he said to me, "You need to man up, mate." He says, "I was up and running about before I realised I had a nick bowel." I was like, "The hero, you, mate, honestly." So got discharged on a Thursday. Went back home. So I was, like I say, living in Newcastle. Friday was a bit of an issue. I couldn't stand up or anything like that. It's Friday night, going into Saturday morning, I said to Sarah, "You go to bed. I'm going to sleep on the sofa. I just can't get up the stairs." I was physically that just wiped and I just couldn't move. But 1 o'clock, I had to ring her to come down and get me because I couldn't get off the sofa. And what had happened was, I didn't know at the time, but my body started shutting down. So what happened was, when you have a big operation, like I say, James, I'll send you these pictures over so you'll be able to have a bit of an understanding of what you're looking at. So I had a 6-pack when I first went into hospital, and they balloon your body out. And if they put, like, I think it's carbon dioxide in there to inflate it up so they can, when they do keyhole, they didn't get all that air out, and the air was trapped. I could feel it going on, the body had started shutting down. So I was having to then get blue lighted up to Cramlington, and they wanted to do surgery on me there and then to release the pressure. I didn't want surgery there. I wanted to go back to the Freeman where I'd already had treatment, and I'd become quite argumentative with him. And it turns out, I was away with morphine, so I apologised in advance to any NHS staff for this. I was argumentative with the consultant, and I was saying I want to go back to the Freeman. They gave me the option, to be fair. And Cramlington Hospital is amazing. The staff are there are phenomenal. They're fantastic. Can't praise them enough. So again, because I'm conscious of time, loads of it, I was trying to give you the overview on certain parts. I was rushed back into the Cramlington. They then said to me, "We've got an option of getting you down to the Freeman, but only if you're paying your fee." The paramedic guys came round, and one of them said, "I recognise your surname, Mutimer." He says, "Are you related to a guy called Derek?" I said, "That's my dad." He goes, "I know him because I was in the army with him." He goes, "Tell them you're paying free and I'll blue light you straight down." Said I was paying free, and they blue lighted me straight down. And these 2 paramedic guys stayed with me all the time in hospital, that day while I was getting assessed. And it's only then when I was taken over by the new surgical team that they left. So that day, I had all the air out and I was fine. But what had happened was, I didn't realise at the time that because that was a traumatic experience and an impact on my body, it deteriorated my heart even more. So we came out of hospital and I went into physical recovery. But because I went into physical recovery and I was flippant about my mental health, I went into mental deterioration, mental health, and it just deteriorated really bad. And I became very withdrawn. I wasn't speaking to people. I wasn't interested in business. I couldn't deal with my staff. I couldn't deal with camera guys. I told Netflix I won't swear. I told Netflix to F off or stuff like this. I was just really becoming an absolute nightmare. I didn't want to go out anywhere, and it just got gradually worse and worse. At the time, Sarah was doing a neuroscience course, which is up in Glasgow. She was having to go up there Monday to Friday, and we were arguing before we went. And I was poorly for a long time, without really realising it. And this brought me around to a period where I was then allowed to go back out, and I was then walking, in amongst the rest of society. And we had gone to Tynemouth Beach, and I remember it was a Sunday. Sarah was going back to Glasgow on the night, and it was just loads of people around, and I just couldn't handle it. I remember telling this really great big thought of him. I didn't know him, and I branded him fat. I branded him useless. He was in my way. I told him to get out of my way. I was going to sling him in the road. All the stuff that you wouldn't normally do in that sense. The guy was well within his rights to knock my head off my shoulders, but he didn't do that. And then I was telling Sarah to get lost. I was telling people to get out of the way, and I was going to walk home. So I live, I don't know if you know Newcastle, I live in a place called Holystone, which is just off the A19. And it's a Tynemouth, so it's like a good 5-10 miles I was wanting to walk, and I can't physically walk far, I was in recovery from having a kidney out, and I've got a heart condition. And that's when I realised I was really poorly with my mental health. I was really bad, and then I wasn't. So the one thing I actually thought people with depression didn't sleep and didn't eat and all of this. I was the opposite. I was eating for England and I was sleeping for England. I was just, in fact, it was very rarely I was awake and not eating, to be fair. I was just all the time. I was just on it. And then I started having suicidal thoughts. And the weirdest thing, never had this. And I drew up a list in my head. Importantly, I put it in my head. I didn't write it down because I didn't want people to see it. And I didn't tell anyone about this. That I wanted to, how I was going to kill myself. I was going to walk out in front of a truck. So there's a friend of mine called Clark Carlisle. He's a footballer. In fact, I've done some work with the BBC with him recently, Clark. I know Clark since we were kids and been impressed him. And I knew that he had, he's got depression, and he walks out in front of a truck. I got the idea from Clark. I thought, I'll do that. Then I don't really get guilt. And I thought, hold on, what happens? I feel sorry for the truck driver who's got an impact on that. That would affect him. I don't want to do that. So I had, and I still take it. I had loads of heart medication, like beta blockers. They're called Ramipril and Bisoprolol. I took loads of them. I took loads of codeine. I had tramadol. I took loads of that. I even took loads of warfarin. I don't know why, because it only thins your blood. Pointless. But I took everything. I literally took all these tablets. Now Sarah at the time was up in Scotland, and I just tried to kill myself. Simple as that. I can't polish it up. And I can't articulate an understanding why I did that, because I don't really remember the build up to that particular day. I got up, I got showered, I done everything as normal, I was functioning, but I tried to kill myself. I missed a little bit out. So prior to that, I took the advice of Sarah, and I'd gone and got sertraline, which is an antidepressant. I'd rang Talking Therapies, and they said to me, do you want to kill yourself today? I went, well, not today. Really, maybe tomorrow I might try and kill myself, or I tried to do it yesterday, and I was just very honest with him. I said, I might try and kill myself next week. Depends what's on the weather, And they went, don't be funny. I said, I'm not trying to be a comedian. I'm just trying to give you how it is. I don't want to kill myself right this minute talking to you. There's nothing to say I'm going to do that in the night time. They said, well, if you haven't got an imminent risk, we can't do anything for you. We'll call you back in a few weeks. 18 months later, they rang me back, but that's a side issue. So that's where I'm a big
side issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I've got big issues about the system being a failure for people, both physically and mentally. But that's an argument for another day.
Another podcast.
Yeah, that's another one. But
it's a nice thing we do as well, Gary.
Well, it's just the system's failing people massively, and it's the failing people for different reasons. And I'm not on about individual stuff, because I understand they're strained and under a lot of pressure. It's the system that's flawed,
Absolutely.
So I made a conscious effort to go and speak to a psychologist. Went and spoke to him. It was a bit hard for me to go and find a psychologist and speak to someone, because 6 degrees of separation don't know Sarah, and it's unfair on Sarah, And he knew Sarah when I spoke to him. Now Sarah works in older adult mental health. This guy was just in health, totally different trust, but he knew her. It's like I joke on and say everyone in Sunderland knows everyone. It's a bit like that in certain professions, And it was just hard to deal with that, because I was conscious that even though I wasn't talking anything about Sarah, I just didn't want. I'm very private at times. There's certain things I'm very private with, but relationships I didn't want that sharing. Anyway, so I slowly got myself a little bit better, and it was fine. Slowly started to try and exercise, going out hiking, stuff like that, and it reduced my mental health. What had happened is we got all the way through to the later in the year, and we'd done Scarfell Pike, and we did it in a bit of a show off here. We did it in 4.5 hours, and I did it with a heart condition to get in. So I was like over the moon with that. It came off, and within 2 weeks, the blackouts started. I was dizzy. I gave up driving just for the sheer fact I was having blackouts. But I never told anybody about these blackouts. I was having them at work, and I was saying to people, don't mention it. Incidentally, my business survived, within to that period. But I was telling people, don't mention it.
So was that, just quickly, because on that one, because I think that's quite important. So you obviously weren't telling people there. So was that obviously making the anxiety, the depression worse? Because obviously you must have been concerned about it, or the blackouts.
No, yeah. So what I did again, very hypocritically, I started then focusing on my physical health and ignoring my mental health, which brought me full circle. So I'd gone from concentrating on physical health, realising I was mentally in the mire, coming to then try and sort that out, get that on an even keel,
then flipping the other one.
Then to do it all over again. Yeah, to ignore it. So the blackouts were starting. I was having them quite regular. I was having really bad palpitations. So I remember walking up a bank in Newcastle, and I was out of breath. I was proper knackered. I mean, I was dizzy, lightheaded, and I was like, oh God, I knew because my heart was pounding. So I later didn't realise at the time is, this is after I had surgery and that. It was explained to me that I could have been in a situation like Fabrice Mwanga, the footballer who played for Bolton. I think it was in 2013 or 2012 or something, where he collapsed on the pitch and had to be resuscitated. What would have happened to me is over a period of time, I could have been playing golf, or I could have just been walking a dog or walking up the stairs, just doing anything. I would have just collapsed, and that would have been it. So I went and had an MRI, stuff like this. They'd seen that the aortic stenosis had deteriorated, but now I'd developed cardiomyopathy. And what cardiomyopathy is where your heart begins to inflame quite rapidly. And again, I'm not a cardiologist. I'm not an expert in cardiology. I just know what they've told me, And on top of that, I developed an aortic aneurysm, which I was very flippant about. I was like, yeah, okay, fine, I might as well have that because I've got everything else. But I didn't realise how important this aneurysm was, because it was on the verge of bursting. And if an aneurysm bursts, you've only got 10 minutes or something like this. So I never told anyone about the blackouts. I went to my mum's in Sunderland one night for tea, I popped in to see the old guard and see how they were getting on. And while I was there, I'm laughing because I remember my mum just made tea. It was steak and tea gravy, and it was the best tea ever, but it was a side issue. I had a blackout, and I collapsed on the floor, and I was sick everywhere. So my dad put me in my mum's an ex-nurse as well. They put me in the recovery position, and they phoned for Sarah. Stupidly, they just should have just phoned for an ambulance. Sarah's very black and white. You don't mess around. She's very like route 1 or route 2. She was at the time working in Hartlepool. She now works at Moncriermouth. She was passing back through the A19, called in my mum and dad, took me straight to hospital. And I had to come clean about the blackouts then. And it was then that they kept me in, and that was it. And I was in Cramlington Hospital for 2 weeks at this point. Great people. Ward 10. I've been an inpatient there now about 3 or 4 times for different things leading up to the valve replacement, and I can't fault them. Cut long story short, they transferred me down to James Cook, and at James Cook, I had open heart surgery, and they put a valve in. So when we all finally meet up face to face, you'll hear the ticking. You can't hear it now. It's like a tick. So I remember waking up in intensive care, and I was like, I can hear ticking. And the nurse goes, no, it's fine. I said, no, I can hear ticking. She goes, you've just come out of surgery. I said, I know I've come out of surgery. I was like wide up and everything. I said, I can hear ticking. And this doctor went by and he went, have you had a valve replacement? I said, I've had something. I don't know what it is, because I was obviously away with it. And he went, oh, that's your valve. It's ticking. I said, what? You never told me this when I signed the dotted line. You lunatics. But
I'll put a silencer on it.
No, it's like, I'm absolutely crap at hide and seek now. I was the world hide and seek champion at one point. I'm like, crap. So again, I'm missing big bits out because I'm very conscious that we've only got a certain amount of time. So my mental health deteriorated the second I came out of surgery. I became really bad. They had to put me in a sideboard by myself. I was horrible towards staff. I was obnoxious. I was argumentative. I think it's because there was a lot of restriction on me, in the sense that I couldn't move or couldn't go anywhere. That I couldn't even stand up or go out. I had a chest draining. I had 2 chest draining. I had a Hickman line. I had everything else. Basically, I was to the bed, and that just frustrated me. And I'd become argumentative, so they put me on a sideboard. I think they were glad to get rid of me when the time came. To be fair, this was all around about the 19th of December, so it's essentially a year on from when I had the kidney removal, and I was discharged from hospital on December the 24th. Round about that time is then when the mental health just plummeted. I disappeared for a few days. I was wandering off. I wasn't with it. I contemplated suicide. I attempted suicide again, doing what I did before. I had all sorts, you know, that I just didn't want to be here. And I literally, when I say I didn't want to be here, I didn't want to be here, but I didn't want to be over there either. You know, I just didn't want to be anywhere. I couldn't speak to people. And bear in mind, I live with a very intelligent woman who what you call it, she's very understanding and very kind. And I couldn't go to her and say to her, I'm feeling bad. I don't want to be, I want to kill myself, because of the impact it would have on her, because I'd already seen what it'd done previously to her. She'd developed health anxiety on the fact that I would be poorly, because you've got to remember, I'd been asymptomatic, very fit, and I was in 1.1% of the population that had kidney cancer. And then again, I was now in 0.1% of the population that had aortic stenosis at my age. So she became very health anxious, very, even now, I mean, she's a neuropsych, which means she knows all about brain tumors. She was for everything. She had a brain tumor, we've had breast cancer, we've had this, we've had that, we've had so on. And it's all impacted because of what happened to me. And she's absolutely fine, by the way, which is just super vigilant, super conscious. So I was carrying a lot of guilt because of what I then impacted onto her, again, from when I was poorly before. So I became then very aware that all that time I was focusing on my physical health, when really it's my mental health, because I can't do anything physically about that. If you look at it logically, you're handing your body over, and this is another thing I struggled with. You're handing your body over to a professional, somebody who's a consultant or a professor. You don't know them. It's like handing your bank card to a complete stranger. It's a leap of faith, isn't it? What I really should have been doing is focusing on my mental health, something I have actually got control in and power over. Because by the sheer fact that you're in business and you're self-employed, is that, you know, within reason, and I don't use this term lightly, is that you're kind of a control freak, because you like to be in control of every aspect of your life, from business and how you work to who you deal with, how you deal with them, how you impact. You lose all that and it's the same in your physical health. When you're in hospital, you lose that as well. You're handing it over. So I should have been impacted on, concentrating on my physical health, while the impact was, concentrating on my mental health, while the impact was on the physical health, and looking after that because it's safer.
I think that's definitely something that even I can relate to, Gary. Like, I think for me, in my sort of water life, just to jump in, like, that's somewhere where, because I take such good care and like train, don't smoke, don't drink, do you know what I mean? Like, eat well, because I'm so health conscious. There's things out there, and I was just having this chat with my partner this morning as well, that it's things outside that you can't control, that you worry about. Do you know what I mean? So I've probably been like what Sarah is, the fact that, like, if I've got a headache, I think, if I've got a brain tumor, do you know what I mean? I've got pain in my stomach, is it cancer? Like, because I'm so health conscious, the thought of having things outside of my control, and again, I've never thought of it along the lines, it's like running a business. That's probably what I do, because I like to be in control of what I can control. And then the thought of that's something that I've struggled with in the past, being, do you know what I mean, open and honest, is at times worried about things that might happen, which I've had to get into my head. You can't worry about things that are out of your control. That's been a big hurdle along sort of my life, is you can only control what you can control. So go to the gym, be fit, like, do the right things, don't smoke, don't drink. Like, you can do that. You can't sit and then worry about things that might happen or might not, because otherwise you spend your life worried about that. And that's certainly something that I've struggled with over life, is obviously getting that bridge up across of, well, you can't control that, don't worry about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so one of the things I've gave talks to like Newcastle Startup Week about this. I gave talks to quite a lot of people in business, one in business. When business is going good, it's fantastic. You feel good. You actually probably look good as well. Do you know what I mean? How you're interacting with other people is great. You know, your outlook's really positive, and your surroundings all feel the same. When business isn't going good for whatever reason, it could be a finance issue, it could be a staffing issue, it could just be a social media issue, it could be just something that the impact on rock bottom is just ridiculous. And so one of the things I've used the same analogy twice. Once when I've given a talk to Northumbria students about being a patient with cancer, and one at Newcastle Startup Week about being self-employed in business. It's when things are going great, it's like you're riding the crest of a wave. You're fine. Everything's positive. Your interactions are great. You're your social mobility is great, your presence is great. And that's what it's like in business. It's like that. But when you're not doing good, and so we'll just say finances, for example, that's a common thing with businesses. When the money dries up, or you're not making enough money, and you're not paying your bills, or the book's left for you because you're the director, you're on your own, and you can talk to people, and that's fine, and that's probably a good thing to do. But there's still the book's left for you. And it's like being on, say, Roker Beach or Tynemouth Beach at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. You're totally naked and you're exposed to all the elements. That's what it's like. So when I had cancer, I remember being awake at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm a big overthinker. And the worst thing to do is dive into your mind and get lost in your mind, because that's what it was like. You're exposed. So I was getting a load of accolades coming through all day long. I'm sorry to hear. I hope you're okay. Anything I can do. Oh, you're doing amazing. You name it. I was getting it all day long on Facebook, and I was just getting it all over. But 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, when your phone's totally silent and you're by yourself and you're alone with your thoughts, that's the dangerous time. And that's what it's like being in business. It's exactly the same. So when it's great, it's brilliant. But when it's 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and everyone's left you and you're left to your own thoughts, that's when you really have to have awareness and start checking in with yourself. And it's, you can cross over this in many parts of your life, so I know you've just said there, and you're the same as me in the sense that, so I still drink, but not massively, it's probably once a month, if that, within certain context. I'm not one of these people that's out every weekend and stuff like this. So I've never smoked. I was really fit. Love to train. I'm back at JD gyms now. Well, I was until we decided we were going to get a virus and locked everything down. But we're not split hairs about that today. But training really well, and I love training. And I'm actually doing a PT course at the moment, not because I want to be a PT. It's just I want to have a better understanding of training and how my body reacts. So you're doing everything by the book. The one thing you've got to then relinquish control is the what ifs, and you just let go of that, because it is just a what if. Never say never in life, because I never thought for 1 minute I would have cancer. I never once thought for 1 minute I would have a heart condition. I never thought for 1 minute I'd live in this part of Newcastle. I'm a bloody Mackham, for God's sake, and I'm a Sunderland fan. The neighbours have just discovered I'm a Sunderland fan. It's a bit weird. They're weird, these neighbours. Anyway. But it's all just relinquishing control of the what ifs. It just, it's easy to say this, but being a control freak in the sense that you're in business and you're controlling everything, it's just relinquish control. And what does that then look like? Are you then worried about that? Are you anxious about that? Or you've got peace of mind? So I'm open about this now. I meditate every day. I spend 15 to 20 minutes meditating before I do anything else, and that's, so I get up, I have a coffee, because I need to have a coffee before I even function and look at people, but whatever. And then I do my meditation. And I've been looking at stuff called ACT therapy. It's all about value based, and it's all about what's value to me. It's really different to what's value to you guys. You might say your wife's more, your wife's your value, your kids. Then what about them? What about them that brings value to you? Your businesses. Okay, why is your business? Is it really important compared to what your family is? What's the difference? It's all about just adding value to it, and your approach to what that looks like. That's something I'm learning at the moment and going through, and that's helping me when I'm at that.
I think that's really key. And as I say, I think because the story is just such a good idea, I think we should split into two and have 2 parts, because I think I'm very conscious of that. I don't want you to cut any bits off. So for me, I think it's just a pause. Like you say, then obviously we'll record part 2, because I think it's a story that to me, it's one of those that is really inspiring, and I think that people will want to hear everything.